honey lovers, it's the Honey Huntress here with my mother.
Hello honey lovers.
And we are so excited to share with you today a honey tasting event with some Colorado honeys from local beekeepers around the state, around the Rocky Mountains. And my mom doesn't actually know these honeys. This was the same lineup that I did for the tasting event at the home ranch a few weeks ago. And when I host these tastings, they are blind tastings where the participants don't know which honeys they're tasting. And so for my mom, it's going to be kind of a blind tasting. She's not exactly sure which jar is which honey and vice versa. So with this tasting, we taste through the varieties of honey, typically from light to dark, like a wine tasting where you would drink your white wine first and then move to your red wine. But with this lineup, we don't have a huge distinction in color. That doesn't mean there's not a huge distinction in flavor though. So what I tried to do is line up the honeys in their flavor complexities. So as we taste, we'll be able to distinguish more and more characteristics in each honey. So with that, we have a really great chart that describes the different flavors and aromas that we can experience while we're tasting, as well as looking at the different colors of the honey. And though we don't have a huge distinction in our colors today, honeys do have a huge range of color. And so this is helpful to try to describe that as you're looking at the honeys. Not only color, but texture. So as we taste, some of the first things that we look at are the color and the texture of the different honeys. The other things I provide during the tastings are a glass of water for the participants to cleanse their palate, and then usually some sort of just salty, lightly salted snack, cracker, popcorn, chips, something that can just kind of break the sweetness apart between each honey tasting. So with that, I wanted to see what do you see with this first honey here? And you can pick it up and move it around, kind of get the texture, the color going.
It's very slow moving, but it is moving.
But it is moving. The liquid honey. So part of the tasting is to also appreciate the aroma. And the little known fact about me is that I was born without a sense of smell. So that's another reason why I have my mother here today to help sense the aromas for us. And honey often doesn't have a really overt smell. It's sometimes quite subtle, a little floral, a little fruit, maybe a little bit of herbiness. But if the honey is off, if it's been fermented, if it's just bad honey, there's usually a stronger smell where you can kind of determine that. Do you get any smells from this?
I definitely do. However, it's very slight, and I would say it's kind of flowery.
There. I like to pretend to smell it.
Can't distinguish anything further really.
Just a little flowery. Cool. Well, as we taste the honey, one of the things I really like to do is let the air come over the honey on my tongue so it kind of heats it a little bit in my mouth, really releasing the flavors kind of over my whole palate. Go ahead and give it a sip, Mom.
Here we go.
So it's sweet, we know that, but some honeys actually are more bitter or medicinal. So this is going to be on the sweeter end of the spectrum.
It's very sweet.
Very sweet.
It actually zinged one of my teeth.
Zinged one of your teeth, yeah. So sweet, can we break it down into any other flavors? I mean, I'm getting a bit of a vegetable flavor from it. Kind of and maybe like a melon, a bit of a melon, and maybe like a little green bean, like just light.
I have to try the taste of green bean.
It's kind of just a really subtle vegetable. You're a green bean. One of the things that I've learned during my honey tasting events is that the power of suggestion is very strong. So I let my groups taste their honeys before I say anything about them, so they can kind of dissect each honey on their own and come up with their own descriptions. Because if I say, do you taste green bean? Some people go, oh yeah, I taste green bean.
I was just gonna do that actually.
Yep. So if you choose to lead your own honey tasting, it's really nice to kind of let the participants experience it personally as they're tasting through, instead of trying to kind of dictate what they should be seeing, smelling, and tasting. It really gives them the opportunity to explore their palate. So with this first honey, we picked up the sweet flavors, the vegetable flavors, but not a lot of complexity. We're not tasting minerality or some kind of more earthy flavors. Nothing really creamy to it, would you say? No, so just a really nice light honey. It was donated to us from San Luis Valley in Colorado from the Hefeliz Honey Farms. It was so sweet of them to donate for this event, and we started with this honey because it just kind of opens the palate. It's a very similar honey to something you would buy in the store, and it's a high altitude clover honey, which is pretty typical around Colorado since there's a lot of high altitude areas. And so for that, it's usually isolated, giving the bees a very clean forage, making the honey nice and clean and pure as well. So now we're going to try our second honey. We're moving our way down the line here. We can tell it's a little bit darker, I think, from the first honey. Pretty much similar in its liquid state, I would say.
Yeah.
And how about scent, Mom? Do you get any scent?
Not as much as with the first one, actually.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, very, very slight.
Very, very slight. Okay. Well, I'm curious to taste.
All right.
And like I said, I kind of breathe in, really letting the honey kind of melt all around. And even though the colors are similar, can you tell already there's a difference in taste? We lost her. She's gone into a honey trance, which can happen.
I was trying to remember the first one as I was eating this one, which actually is going to be fun going because now we can compare.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
as long as you save some of your first one.
yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to say that this honey is a little bit more complex than the first honey. There's a richness to it. The first honey was really light in its flavor. This one has a little more depth, I would say.
I would agree, and I'm not just saying that. Yeah, I
Feel free to look at it.
maybe a little citrusy.
Ah, that's a good word. Yeah, some citrus. I'm getting
Actually, bubblegum.
bubblegum citrus. Ah, okay. There you go. I'm actually getting a few more spices in this one. Like it talks about kind of some spicy flavors. Not much. It's just like a really light ginger. Just kind of a mild coolness to the end of the flavor. But not herby. It's more just like a light spice like that.
It seems to be sitting with me longer than the other one.
For this second honey, I was so grateful to be able to use some of the honey from the home ranch for my lineup.
No kidding.
So this honey was produced by our very own bees right up the road, and no treatment, no chemicals in the hive whatsoever. These are some happy bees, and it's a second year hive, so they're still pretty fresh, still pretty young, but very strong.
It is very good. And now that I know it's from the home ranch, I'm gonna have some more.
Yeah, just pure as can be, no heat used in the harvesting process, just hand squeezed from the comb, so really a lot of love Very, very healthy, local honey, as local as we can get here.
It came from your own backyard.
It's impossible to fit a whole honey tasting in one YouTube episode, so thank you for liking this video, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss part 2 of the honey tasting experience. And thank you for joining me on the sweetest adventures on earth.